And I've experienced on numerous occasions over the years, you know, Sean showing up with this, basically. And I've seen band leaders actually get a little upset at this.
They get offended.
Yeah, and they say, what, you're just lazy, not want to work on my gig? But then they hear him play, and by the end of the gig, man, it's, you know, bring whatever you want, you know. You know, so it's really about what you do musically with it and fulfilling your role. Now, getting back to the group denominator, what is that? The simplest thing you can do for the music to survive. Sean, do a little bit of that thing that we were just doing a second ago. Now, for a bass player, the first thing I'm going to zero in on is the kick drum, because that's basically where I'm going to get my group denominator from. So in the kick drum part, what do you think is the simplest thing that he could do and leave everything else out for that group to still stand up? You can clap like 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, what I'm hearing there is this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just do that. Big drum on. So 2. That's what I base my whole pattern off of, was that. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, we could just do bump, dump, and that would be enough. So when you're seeking to find your part, locate the group denominator, the simplest thing that you can do to make the music work, and then base your part off that. Because in all that stuff I was playing, those rhythms are there. Right? So group denominator. Right? That's a big thing to really look for.
Cool.
Right. Okay. What is music? You're going to play it, you don't know what it is, right? You say it in one word. That's a concept. What is it?
Phrase.
It's a language. Communication based on emotion. The player feels, plays, the listener hears, feels, period, end of story. All right, so it's real important to think of music as a language because it explains why you do and don't do certain things. Right? For example, people will think about playing. I've played with people that are really concerned about the mathematics of what they do. You know, really they work out this timing stuff, but there's really no feel. There's no heart to it. It's very contrived because they're not really speaking, right?
Counting.
Mm-hmm. So it's the notes, whether they be rhythmic notes or harmonic notes, are the alphabet and or vocabulary for the language of music. Right? You're going to organize these notes into patterns, rudiments, or in the case of bass, you know, scales, you know. You're going to use these as organizational things for your vocabulary to get basic things together on the instrument. All right? Because, like, for example, on bass, if I, say I was going to practice scales, right? I've seen people spend hours on that kind of stuff, and I've never heard anybody get on stage and do that, ever. right? So spending a lot of time there is not really the point. The point is to know where all your choices are. And again, for drummers, I suspect this to be rhythmic choices and places to actually physically execute these on the instrument. Knowing where they are, what they are, why they are what they are. In other words, understanding the harmony and theory behind it. And harmony and theory is just an attempt to explain what we're hearing. Just like going to English class, right? And studying adjectives, pronouns, and that kind of stuff, right? So if you're playing, let's say if I'm playing over a chord, I just hear it and play, right? But all I'm doing is I'm using the notes of this particular major scale over this particular chord. But I know where they all are to the point I'm not thinking about what I just played any more than I'm thinking about each word as I'm saying it to you now. In other words, how it's spelled, whether it's an adjective or pronoun. But if you stop me on a word, I'd probably be able to tell you how to spell it. In other words, I know what it is, but I'm not consciously thinking about it when I'm playing. It's just like when I'm talking to you now. Just, okay, well that's the 6th degree of the A major scale over an A major 9 chord. When I think about it, I can tell you what it is. And with this harmony and theory stuff and all the academics part of it, it gives you control. It basically turns guesses into choices. So that's why it's important to work on that stuff. But it's also, as Sean said, it's important to leave that stuff at home. When you come to a gig, you should come to play, not necessarily in practice. Now, I'm not saying don't try to put stuff in that you've worked on, but that's not the place to actually practice working on it. You should actually have it to the point where you're able to actually use it like you use words or a phrase that you picked up recently. All right. See if I have any questions at this point. Anything that you guys want to talk about as far as rhythm section? Yes?
How do you keep something that's kind of low, slow and lilting? How do you keep that interesting?
Define interesting.
Keep your attention.
I mean, because what's interesting to you might not, I want to make sure I understand what you're thinking
about. I just want to sit there and do quarter notes on a ride or whatever.
Well, that should be the interest. I mean,
it depends on what you're playing and the context of your working in, because that question is relative to a lot of different situations.
Depends on the tune.
Yeah.
Just because a tune is slow doesn't mean that you have to fill it up with interesting little tidbits, right? I guess the younger we are, we're so focused on what we've been practicing, wanting to bring that in, but really, musically, there's more to be said with the space of, I don't need that. Sure. Yeah. Y'all can hear me, right?
Yeah.
No, that's right. Don't even turn it on, man. It's good. I'm good. It's more about the space and the things that happen between the notes and allowing the other musicians to fill that hole. When it comes to the drummer's perspective, I would much rather just do quarter note on the ride cymbal, and then it's more implied than anything else. I mean, sure, you can do interesting little things like maybe with the hi-hat or things like that, but as far as kick drum and adding nat notes and things like that, I mean, grace notes are great. They're cool, but it's not a necessity. I think you can speak volumes with space as opposed to filling in holes. I mean, so the constant is the ride cymbal, but then you add the grace notes in between the space, but more than anything else is the space that quarter note, the air. And that just speaks so much more to me than, you're going to get the look, which I've gotten plenty of times. And you know, that's kind of a thing that happens, unfortunately, the older you get. And there are a few select people that really get it when they're younger. Speaking of Mother's Finest, I mean, the original drummer, B.B. Queen. Dude, I can't say enough about his command and how little he had to play to get that point across. And he was 19 when he played Baby Love. When I was 19, I was all up in Terry Bozzio, all of that stuff. And I was playing in a rock band. We were playing, you know, the Tubes and Rush and Genesis, and all of that stuff. And I was playing everything I could possibly think of in one song. The guitar player would take a blazing solo. I was right behind him. And I'm getting off the stage. I'm like, I rock! Dude comes up to me. I still tell this story. I'm telling it now. 19, I get off the stage. I'm sweating. I'm like very proud of myself. Did you check me out? Dude's like, man, you sound great. Starts it off like the 1 minute manager, telling me what I did good first, and then tells me what I'm doing bad. You sound great. One thing. Just because a guitar player takes a solo doesn't mean you have to. And it was like, but I still remember it. So it's something that has become ingrained in me, and then all of a sudden I learned to appreciate the space and being able to say those things and imply those things gracefully without being like a bull in a china shop, right? So to make things interesting, you do incorporate the things that you practice, but like I said, you got to be really sneaky about it, and that's what people call finesse, right? Rather than just completely blowing and stepping all over everybody and finishing everybody's licks and things like that, you learn to hear what they're playing and then maybe embellish, time-wise, half of what they're doing, right? If they're doing a 30-second note trill, you might just do an 8th note finish that gets into the next section, right? Rather than playing, you know, right? It's so much more, and it's more powerful, shows confidence. Because when, in my mind, when you overplay, that is just lack of confidence. Because you have to, in your mind, you're saying, okay, this is what I practiced, and this is what I feel I need to say, because I need to make sure that everybody in this place knows that I'm a good drummer. But just blowing cheese over everything is not showing that you're a good drummer. A good drummer is there to lift everybody else on stage to their pinnacle point. It's not to elbow them out of the way to show that you've got chops that you've practiced for however many years and you've got, you know, things to say. I've had drummers ask me, what kind of rig are you playing? I'm like, so lots of times it's just a kick and a snare. And they're like, oh, I have to use 5 tom-toms because I have things to say. I'm like, rock on, man, but you know, I can say what I need to say with a kick and snare. It's all about placement and bringing the rest of the musicians that you play with to the point to where they can play without even having to worry about time, worry about the drummer filling up their space, because that's not your place. Your place is to bring the other musicians up to a point to where they can say what they need to say melodically, and you are there to primarily keep time, but to also have good flow and be finesseful or what's the word? Just it's an emotional thing. It's to show understanding and respect to the people.